Welcome back to our channel, guys. Today is a beautiful day to dive deep into the tangled web of Fairmont Crest. And let me tell you, the sheer amount of psychological warfare happening right now is absolutely staggering. I have been sitting here for hours just replaying these latest developments in my head, and I can't help but feel that we are standing on the precipice of a massive community-wide explosion. Everyone is holding on to secrets that are just too heavy to carry, and the cracks are finally starting to show in ways that are both heartbreaking and utterly terrifying. Let's start by talking about Bill Hamilton, because there is something about his current situation that just doesn't sit right with me. I keep going back to the image of him in his office, casually adjusting a framed photo of himself and Haley. On the surface, it looks like the actions of a devoted husband who is just happy to be back at work after a major health scare. But guys, when you really stop and think about the dramatic irony here, it is chilling. He is looking fondly at the face of the woman who is actively, methodically microdosing him with poison. He has absolutely no idea that his luxurious home is actually a death trap. I can't help but wonder if Bill is overcompensating. Is he throwing himself into his work because on some subconscious level, he knows his home life is a toxic illusion? And then June walks in. I have to say, I am loving June's redemption arc right now, but her interaction with Bill really got my wheels turning. She comes in asking for a free legal consultation for her friend Lucy, whose landlord is hiking up the rent just because the lease was under her late mother's name. June makes this incredibly impassioned plea, pointing out that Lucy's son is autistic and struggles with change. Bill, surprisingly, agrees to play the hero. They even share a laugh over him being banned from eating chicken fried steak with cream gravy. It seems like a sweet, humanizing moment, but maybe I'm overthinking this. Is Bill trying to build a legacy of good deeds before his time runs out? He's so eager to help, so eager to be the good cop, and I just feel like this is a man who is desperately trying to assert control over a life that is rapidly slipping through his fingers. Speaking of control, Naomi's reaction to finding Bill at the office is incredibly telling. Jacob had made her breakfast oats that morning, a sweet, grounding gesture from a husband who is clearly worried about the chaos surrounding his wife's family. Jacob expressed his concerns about Bill returning to work too soon, but Naomi brushed it off, saying her dad always does whatever he wants. But the moment she actually sees Bill in that office, the reality hits her. She immediately starts arguing with him, reminding him of his stroke and his recent heart issues, begging him to work from home. The tragic part, Naomi thinks she is protecting him by trying to send him home, completely oblivious to the fact that sending him back to Haley is the most dangerous thing she could possibly do. Naomi eventually decides to take over the new case they were discussing, and Bill actually kicks Tomas out of the office so he and Naomi can work together. This brings me to Tomas Navarro, a man who is currently spiraling in spectacular fashion. If you ask me, Tomas is reaching a dangerous breaking point. He gets unceremoniously dismissed from Bill's office, effectively emasculated in his professional life, and his personal life isn't doing much better. Earlier, he and Kat had a tense disagreement about Bill working too soon. Tomas was hoping Naomi would drop her other cases and focus solely on Madison's malpractice suit, and he finally had to swallow his pride and admit that he overstepped his bounds with Naomi's case. But when Kat has to rush off for an emergency, Tomas is left grumbling, complaining that his work is just as important. Kat rightly reminds him that he bailed on her the last time she had an emergency. It seems like the foundation of their relationship is crumbling. Kat is pulling away, deeply invested in her own investigations and her family, while Tomas is desperately clinging to a sense of authority he simply doesn't have. So, what does a bruised ego do? It seeks validation. Tomas ends up finding Eva and just unloads on her. He whines about Naomi being overwhelmed and complains about the blatant nepotism at the law firm. I mean, the absolute lack of self-awareness here is astounding. He is complaining about nepotism to Eva Thomas, the daughter of the hospital's former chief of staff and the stepdaughter of a prominent doctor. Eva, to her credit, actually relates to him, acknowledging her own status as a Nepo baby. But the most revealing moment of this entire exchange is when Tomas admits that his mother keeps asking why he and Kat aren't engaged yet. His response? He lied and told his mother they just aren't ready. Why lie, guys? Why not just say Kat rejected the proposal? I think Tomas is deeply ashamed, and he knows that if he admits the truth, he has to face the reality that Kat might never marry him. Eva's shocked reaction, yelling, Thomas, before giving him a hug, shows just how messy this is getting. Eva is collecting secrets, and I have to wonder if she will use this information later. But Eva has her own emotional mountains to climb, and her dynamic with Isaiah is becoming one of the most complex elements of this entire show. Earlier that day, Isaiah complimented Eva's gym outfit. Eva, still battling severe body dysmorphia and insecurity over her jagged liver transplant scar, admitted she felt she couldn't wear crop tops anymore. Instead of forcing that suffocating, toxic positivity on her, telling her she's beautiful and should just get over it, Isaiah simply accepts her feelings. He tells her he doesn't want to be the kind of guy who forces her to look on the bright side when she's hurting. That level of emotional intelligence is so rare, and it clearly made Eva feel safe and happy enough to rush off to the gym. However, that sense of security is incredibly fragile. Later at Orphe's, Kat is hanging out with Isaiah. Kat had just thanked Jacob for helping find the burner phone that Allison used to stalk Chelsea. There is a lot of dark, heavy trauma lingering in the air regarding Allison's potential return, so Kat desperately needed a moment of levity. She and Isaiah start brainstorming names for the new Chelsea Cat purse. They're throwing out names like Storm, Valkyrie, and Vixen, and they are just laughing, sharing a genuinely lighthearted moment. And that is exactly when Eva walks in. I can only imagine the psychological devastation Eva felt in that split second. She sees her boyfriend, the man who just made her feel secure about her scarred body, laughing effortlessly with Kat Richardson. Kat, the woman whose liver is quite literally inside Eva's body. Kat, the woman whose surgical complications caused Eva so much immense guilt. I can't help but feel that Eva's sudden wave of intense jealousy isn't just about another woman talking to her man. It's about her deep-seated fear that she is broken and that Isaiah would be better off with someone whole, someone vibrant, someone like Kat. It's a tragedy of miscommunication waiting to happen, and I am terrified Eva is going to self-sabotage this relationship. While we are on the subject of the Hawthorne brothers, I need to talk about the conversation Jacob and Isaiah had at Orphe's before Kat arrived. June had just breezed by their table, loud and perky, serving breakfast. After she left, the brothers got into some deep family lore. They talked about how their mother, Ma, is aggressively pushing for them to attend Sunday dinner, and how their father, Pops, is supposedly trying to change his ways. But the detail that really caught my attention was their mention of their brother Luke. They laughed about how Luke is laying low and staying out of sight in Detroit. Guys, you don't just lay low in Detroit unless you are hiding from something massive. The Hawthorns have always had this undercurrent of criminal ties and dark secrets. And I keep coming back to the thought that Luke's absence is going to tie into the larger, more dangerous elements of Fairmont Crest. There is a storm brewing in that family. And speaking of storms, let's pivot to the absolute mess happening over at Garland Memorial. Carlton Fitzgerald runs into Ted Richardson and is just floating on cloud nine. He starts gloating about this incredible one night stand he just had, claiming he was slain by a siren. He tells Ted it was one of the greatest nights of his life, even though he didn't get a name or a number. We know exactly who that siren is. It's Heather Armstrong, the Impaler, the international plasma ring crime boss who has been stalking Andre and Danny. There is something so deeply unsettling about Carlton's blissful ignorance. He thinks he just had a wild, passionate encounter, completely unaware that he just slept with one of the most dangerous women on the planet. Why did Heather target Carlton? I highly doubt it was just for pleasure. She was just rejected by Andre, yes, but Heather operates with surgical precision. Does she need Carlton for something at the hospital? Is she using him to gain access to medical records or perhaps to further her red market plasma operations? Carlton is a pawn and he is smiling while walking right into a trap. Right in the middle of Carlton's gloating, Nicole Dupree struts in, oozing her usual brand of seductive confidence. She demands to know what gossip the men are whispering about. Ted, who is currently carrying the massive, soul-crushing secret of Andre's hidden past and Heather's stalking, keeps his mouth shut. Nicole immediately assumes they must be talking about her or maybe about Kat. The sheer ego on this woman is staggering, but it also masks a deep insecurity. Later on, Nicole meets up with Kat and just starts bragging about how she has absolutely no time to hang out because she is too busy having mind-blowing sex with Kyle Rollins. Yet, in the same breath, she admits she had time to go to a Nationals game. It's so performative. When Kat shows her the new purse design and mentions she was honored to name it the Nikki, Nicole immediately shoots it down. She hates the name because it reminds her of Leslie Thomas, her eternal rival. Instead, Nicole suggests naming the high-end luxury bag Bad Bitch. It's aggressive, it's defensive, and it screams of a woman trying too hard to prove she is untouchable. When Ted finally catches up with Nicole later, after Kat leaves, Nicole asks if Ted thinks she should reach out to Carlton, still entirely convinced that Carlton is pining for her. Ted just looks at her and flat out calls her out for being full of herself. It is such a satisfying moment, but it also highlights the tragic disconnect between these characters. Nicole is obsessing over her ego and her purse names, while Ted is silently carrying the weight of Andre's terrifying secrets, knowing that a monster like Heather is lurking in their midst. I keep returning to the thought that all of these storylines, Bill's poisoning, Ava's fragile self-worth, Tomas's bruised ego, and Heather's insidious infiltration are heading for a catastrophic collision. The truth might be far more complex than it appears, and as these characters continue to lie to themselves and each other, the fallout is going to be biblical. I could be wrong, but I have a sinking feeling that someone in Fairmont Crest is not going to survive the week. What do you guys think? Who is going to break first?